Who are you?
Tom Peterson, co-host. You're Dean Foster, last I checked.
That's me.
Oops.
Your culture's showing. It is?
Yeah.
Again?
Wow. You're going to have to figure this one out. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so this leads us all to talking to you about the islands of Iceland. Dean, you've been to Iceland.
I have, indeed.
And also, we're talking about Malta. Those are different places, right?
Also
Dean?
And did work there.
Okay. All right, good.
Met with the Maltese.
Yeah, okay.
Stole the falcon.
Well, we know it got put back.
It got put back. I would never keep it. No.
And the impacts of being islands like that and being located where they're located. Those types of things are important aspects of what takes place on an island, right?
Yes, and important reasons for the culture that developed in both islands in both very different, unique ways.
Okay. Oh, speaking of people out on a remote island somewhere, there's also our producer, Torin, who is actually in studio with us today. Although we do have him seated under a blanket, and we just say, yes, we don't want to have to look at him. That's the whole thing. So
It's a little warm under there.
He's way off in the corner.
Well, don't worry about it being too warm over there. We're all already depressed. It's starting to get colder. That's where we are, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to be doing in this podcast. While listening to this, you may think, hey, I wonder, well, if you have a question like that and want to ask us, there's a couple ways you can do it. One would be through email, which is oopscultureshow@gmail.com. That's OOPS cultureshow@gmail.com. And then there's also our handle on Twitter, which is Oops Culture Show. That's OOPS Culture Show. I know. It's not original, but it works. Okay.
So I throw on a T-shirt, first one out of a drawer, and it's my Reykjavik T-shirt, because I have a sort of like a little habit when I travel. If I'm in a place I've never been to before, I pick up a T-shirt that reminds me of that place. So when I was in Iceland, I got a Reykjavik T-shirt.
Okay.
And right underneath the Reykjavik T-shirt in the drawer was my Malta T-shirt.
Okay.
Because when I was in Malta, I got a Malta T-shirt.
Certainly not geographical, but probably helpful for you in the drawer.
Both in the European region.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So my dilemma was, do I wear my Malta shirt? My Walter shirt?
Well,
my Malta
but Walter
shirt.
wants it back, by the way. He mentioned that to me.
Actually, I didn't get it in Malta. I got it at Walter's house.
Did you?
I saw it and I liked it so
Well,
much.
I think Walter is from Malta, isn't he?
Walter
from Malta?
from Malta?
Yes.
So the question was, do I wear the Malta shirt or the Reykjavik shirt?
My gosh.
But I put on the Reykjavik shirt because, and
Yes.
here's where it gets
Here
to
it is.
my
Drum roll,
depression.
please.
Because the days are getting shorter. And the sun is going down sooner. And
Yes.
our friend, we have a mutual friend, Dave.
Yes, Dave.
Was
Yes.
remarking about this constantly.
Yes.
Right?
About
Over the last,
well, we're recording
ever
this.
since the summer equinox.
That's it, and we're recording this during the summer right now. And we've gone past the equinox, thus, or the solstice rather.
Is it a solstice or an equinox?
No, the equinox is fall and autumn. They're equal days, equal day and night.
Yes, that's right.
And then the solstice, there's the winter and the summer solstice, and the summer solstice is the beginning of summer in the northern hemisphere, and it is late June. So at this stage, when we're recording this, we've gone past that. So all our days are getting shorter and shorter. And Dave has a great deal of depression over this.
And he passed that on to me and to everyone that he wanted to remind.
Yep.
Even though you're in the thrall of the blush of summer,
yes,
where everything is blooming and bursting and just coming apart with love and color, be not deceived. The days are getting shorter. They're getting darker. And soon we're going to be, like if like 6 months from now, we'll be in the middle of this cold and
6
dark
months from now,
summer.
we'll be in the glorious time when the days are getting longer again.
Oh, yeah. See, that's
and it'll
the
be
other
just
side.
unbelievably wonderful, although the temperature will be somewhere in the vicinity of 70 degrees cooler.
And it will be dark at 4 o'clock in the
Right.
afternoon. So how does this relate to my Reykjavik shirt?
I don't have a idea.
You may ask. You may ask.
I may ask. I wouldn't have chosen to, but let's go with it
When
anyway.
I was in Iceland,
Yeah.
I was there in
See, now that's an interesting thing, visiting Iceland.
toward the end of December.
Oh,
mid-December.
My goodness.
When the sun truly did not come up until almost 11 o'clock in the morning, and would start to go down again around 2:30.
Wow.
And so you had a window of about 3 hours to see everything there was to see outdoors in Reykjavik.
Yes.
I was not depressed, by the way. You cannot be depressed in Iceland. Iceland is a fantastic place.
Okay.
Whether you're there in the winter and it's dark most of the time, or whether you're there in the summer, when the reverse, right?
Right.
So right now in Iceland, I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to get myself depressed thinking about how dark and dismal it's going to be so soon after the solstice.
Right.
Rather, I'm going to think about the fact that in Iceland, in fact, it is bright and sunny almost at midnight.
In the right now, during the summer, the actual summer, it is bright almost the entire day.
You do see the sun. It goes down.
It dips
right around now. It dips and it gets a little like sunset, but then it starts to come up again. Like, nah, I don't want to go down.
Right.
I think I want to go down, but nah, I'm going to come back up.
Yeah.
And in the winter when I was there, it was just the opposite. It's like, oh, I don't want to come up. No, please don't make me come up. And it comes up and it falls down again.
Sure.
Pretty fast.
And there's people anywhere located in the upper northern hemisphere who can relate to what you're talking about, I'm sure. In Canada, in Alaska, in the Scandinavian countries and across northern Russia and all those areas. There's areas in there that that our listeners in those areas right now are probably nodding and realizing what you're saying is true. Do you think they would agree with you that there isn't, because of this situation, that there isn't a certain level of depression they have to be aware of?
Well, I'm really not depressed, but it made me think of that. And every time I think of what Dave said, it made me depressed. Thank you very much, Dave, for that.
Depression Dave.
For that realization that even though we're in the full blush of summer, the news is not very good.
It's not good. It's all moving toward a black hole.
But let's ask. I mean, if we have listeners who are experiencing full summer right now in the Nordic regions,
yes,
how are you feeling? Is this making you ebullient and drunk with summer, and
crazy for love?
And crazy for love?
There you go.
Or is this? Or are you in full depression mode, realizing that it's all downhill from here? I mean, let's find out.
Let's find out. Yeah. Now, look, the idea of being on an island and being, in that case, being very far north, culturally, it has to have influences where you're located and what the weather's like, and whether this sun in the sky stays up all day or goes away and you barely see it anymore. It has to have cultural impact, right?
Well, see, and that goes to the question we're asking the listeners, if you're in that region, because I think the intuitive knee-jerk reaction that I would have not being there would be that when the sun shines, you feel better, and when it's dark all the time, you get depressed.
Right.
But I may be wrong. Maybe that is not the way
sure
the reaction goes. Although there's been this old, I think it's more of an urban legend than a truth about suicide rates going up,
right,
and being very high in Scandinavia,
right,
because it's supposedly dark and people get depressed. But I don't think that's true. I don't think.
That's probably something we could look up.
Are correct.
Whether the suicide rates are higher in the winter in Scandinavia and Iceland and places like that,
or that it has the highest suicide rate in the world. I'm not sure.
Available to actually look something up. What?
Hey,
what? What about
Torrin?
Hey. Oh my gosh! Come out from under the blanket and
okay.
Okay.
Can you look this up and see if that is just an urban legend, or is that a truth that that Sweden has the highest suicide rate in the world?
Yeah, let me take a look.
All right.
I don't think that's
And whether
true.
or not
I'm not
it's-
sure
well-
it's even related to the issue of
Right.
daylight and such.
Even if they have that, does it vary from season to season?
Because they're so happy for so many other reasons anyway.
Well, they should be.
That I think it counterbalances, or
They have
maybe
a great
even
country with great
overbalances.
people, and everybody looks gorgeous.
Well, the whole idea, in the cultural phenomenon of hygge,
Mm-hmm.
in Denmark, and Denmark's part of Scandinavia, and they share many similar.
Absolutely. And I
similar
think you're going to
values
have to
and
explain
similar-
that one to most of our
So
listeners.
it's a very popular concept right now,
Including me.
where it's the idea of making cozy, being happy by making cozy.
Okay.
So, some simple pleasures like having a nice warm set of slippers and on a cold evening by the
Okay.
fireplace, like my puppy slippers. that
Right,
we've
right.
talked
Way
about.
back at the beginning
Yeah.
of all this. Yeah.
Which listeners who may not have listened to our first or second episode may not be aware.
Why
but,
not?
But should definitely be intrigued enough to now.
I
take
think
a
they were in
look.
episode 3.
You need to know about my puppy slippers.
Yes.
This is important stuff.
No, it's absolutely important.
It's a form of hygge, which I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but
Okay.
it's the best I can do with the Danish that I don't have.
Okay,
and,
good.
And it's a
I could
cultural-
use a Danish right now, actually.
Even a Danish
Yes.
is a form of hygge because it makes you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. When do they show up?
So it's this idea that you can be. I think Denmark on some sort of scale, like the UN comes out with these things, like the happiest country in the world.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think is Denmark, and the second happiest country is maybe Sweden.
Yeah, I want to say that Finland
So how
was
can
in
they
there
have?
at
Well,
one
maybe
point.
Finland's.
Yeah.
Well, the Finland
yeah.
is not technically part of Scandinavia.
Understood. That doesn't make it out of the running for being happiest country.
However, to be correct, given the nature of our podcast here, we should make it clear that Finland is part of the Nordic region,
Right.
although it is not considered part of Scandinavia. Scandinavia is typically Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland.
Now, but is that a political association or is that an actual geographic association?
Actually, it's cultural geographic.
Okay.
Scandinavia, Sweden, Denmark, Norway share cultural similarities. The languages have the same root.
Right.
They have they have a Viking tradition.
Mm-hmm.
The cultures come out of the whole Viking thing.
Okay.
Right? Which is why they like to do all these Viking sort of things.
Yeah. The Viking sort of thing.
Viking,
Yep.
You can quote me on that one.
Okay. And I won't have to. Everybody heard you say it.
But Finnish culture is different.
Yeah.
It's different. Finns don't have a Viking tradition.
Okay.
The people in Finland actually migrated into that region from Central Asia.
Uh-huh.
And the language is completely different. It's Finno-Ugric.
Okay.
It's not related to the other Scandinavian languages. And in fact, it's closer to Estonian and Hungarian.
So drifting south that direction, they're more associated with that because they're right along with, that's Russia, right on their
That's
border,
right.
And so I would think they might trend to be influenced greatly by that.
That's correct. So one is facing
Northern
east,
Russia.
one is facing
Yes.
west. And interestingly, in Europe, you've got these three countries speaking related languages, just as you have in Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway
Yeah.
speaking a related Scandinavian rooted language.
Okay.
You have in Finland, Estonia, and Hungary, these three different languages, but they're all related as Finno-Ugric, whose base is actually from Central Asia.
Okay.
And
Okay.
here's the thing that blows my mind.
I'm prepared for
the
mind-blowing.
same people who
Yeah.
moved west
Yes.
into Finland, Estonia, and what is today Hungary,
Uh-huh.
also moved east around the same time
Okay.
into what is today Korea. And there are words in
Wow.
Korean that are similar to words in European Finno-Ugric.
Huh.
Isn't that? I'm
That is pretty
speechless.
fascinating.
I'm
Yeah.
speechless.
Yeah.
Which is a rare thing.
Well, you're not, actually. You just continue to talk. We can't seem to stop you. However, I have to admit, that's pretty cool. that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
So where does Iceland fit into all of this?
I don't know. That's kind of what you're here for.
So Iceland is a Nordic culture.
Uh-huh.
And the language there, again, Scandinavian rooted, Norwegian, actually, because
Right.
the Vikings came.
They sailed
essentially-
into Iceland, right? Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't know if when the Vikings came to Iceland, that they actually encountered other peoples. I think it was a deserted island. I may be wrong here.
Okay.
And again, something, Torrin, do you think it's possible that we could find out when the Vikings got to Iceland?
He's kind of disappeared on us, so I'm expecting that he's out gathering
At some
incredible
point,
amounts of
you know,
information.
Incredible.
Most of which I don't have any clue what we've asked him at this point, but that's all right. He'll remember.
Did the Vikings just take over this deserted island?
Yes.
Or is it?
Was Iceland deserted before the Vikings arrived? Is basically.
Or did
it.
they have to conquer an existing indigenous people?
And
I
is-
don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
But I may be. But here's the thing. Oh, this is Iceland.
Is this the thing now? Because I thought
It's a-
we had
it's
the
a-
thing earlier.
There are so many.
This
things.
that was the mind blowing thing. Maybe this is something different.
There are so many things. In fact, in
Okay.
Iceland, there is an alt thing.
Say what?
An alt thing.
Okay.
Like I said, there's so many things.
Okay.
The alt thing is the world's oldest parliament.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's situated in Iceland. The remnants of the original one are situated on a chasm outside of Reykjavik, where all the people at the time would come together
Yeah.
and vote on everything.
Right,
I mean,
right.
if you wanted, an apple orchard next to you or something, well, they didn't have apple orchards there, but whatever it was.
Didn't have
you-
time to
you
grow
bring it up
apples.
at the parliament, and there it would be decided
Okay.
in this seismic chasm that
Yeah.
you can visit, and it represents the
You mean
continental
just a,
divide.
a geographic
A
chasm.
geologic location
A geologic
where
location.
the
Okay.
European plate meets the North American plate.
Okay.
So isn't that
That's
such a metaphor?
really
right?
interesting, yeah.
Cultural metaphor, and that's
And it
where
meets
the world's
it there
and that's
beneath Iceland.
beneath Iceland, and that's where the world's first parliament
Okay.
met.
And it's continued to meet there?
I know. I don't think they're meeting there now.
well,
they'd have
what's
to-
up with that? I mean, come on.
I think they have a building in Reykjavik now that they're doing it
Wow.
in, but
They've wimped out on
they
us.
tents from the 9th century. They got rid of those things. But
Come on, suck it up. Get out there.
and it's called in Icelandic. It's called the Althing.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
It's,
So here's the thing. And
are
the-
you up to, are you really good with your Icelandic? Can we count on your pronunciation?
Absolutely not.
Okay, great.
Not
Excellent.
at all. Like I said, my Danish is not there, and,
Right.
and so my
Your
my
Icelandic
Scandinavian
is not
if
great
My
either.
Danish isn't there. My Icelandic isn't going to be there.
Okay, well, all right.
Yeah,
You
but
don't have to
here's
get
the
testy
thing.
about it. What's that?
But here's the thing
Yes.
that I was referring to before
Another thing. This
the all
is,
thing.
And now the all thing is not the thing.
Not
but
the
this is
thing.
another thing.
This is the thing I meant before. This is the pre-all thing that I was mentioning.
Okay, so now current thing, proceed.
Yeah. Well, it's not the current thing. It's the pre-all thing.
Oh, the pre-all thing. Okay. We've clarified the designation. Now, please, we're begging you, please. This better be good too,
What is it?
because it is the thing. I have no idea.
What am I talking about?
Let's see if Torrance found anything for us here.
Here's it is.
You're going to say it.
I
Okay,
did
all
remember.
right.
In Icelandic,
Yeah.
the name of the country is not Iceland.
What is it?
It's been mistaken in English as Iceland because it's in the north and it's icy and all that.
Right.
But that isn't it. It's the anglicization of the Icelandic word for island.
Uh-huh.
Island, mispronounced as Iceland.
Okay. Interesting.
Right? So it's not a land that's, always covered in ice. In fact, Greenland, right next door, is covered in far more ice, a much larger, grander island. But the green in any of this region, there's going to be more green found in Iceland than in Greenland.
Sure. Well, tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure you will. But I believe Greenland was called Greenland so that it would get people to go there.
Well, there was no other reason to go?
There,
No pubs?
well, but when you showed up, they kind of went, okay, we lied about the green. And
But then it was too late.
right.
You're going to get back on
Because he
that
couldn't
ship
get out of there. Right. There's no
and
way
spend
that was
another
happening.
4 months
All right, we'll stay.
on the North Atlantic going home.
So I would say this sounds like a good time for a break. We'll be right back. Okay, listen, the way to get hold of us is oopscultureshow@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is Oops Culture Show. Whether this is the first episode or the third episode or whatever episode that you've listened to, if you're still listening at this point, I think you might like this. And if you do, you should really subscribe. Because if you subscribe, these things will just show up for you, and you can listen to them whenever you want to. That's the best way to go, really, honestly. I know what I'm talking about. All right, so just subscribe through iTunes or through wherever you get your podcasts from. But do it today, okay? Subscribe. Thank you. Okay, so where are we, Torrin, with the first thing we had you looking up there?
Well, so I can hit on both of your questions pretty quickly.
All right.
Is this the pre-all thing, or is it the...
I think we're looking at suicide rates, aren't we?
This is suicide rates.
Which may go up with this podcast, by the way.
According to the World
That's not
Health
something to joke about,
Organization-
and I apologize for that. Go
According to
ahead.
the World Health Organization, their 2015 list of suicide rates, Sweden is if number one is the highest rate, Sweden is number 46 of 183 countries.
See, it's
definitely
right
not
there in the middle.
Okay.
Right there in the middle.
USA is number 48, so right around the same.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Iceland is number 65.
Oh, see?
So
Okay.
The
even lower in
Scandinavian,
Iceland.
Nordic countries
Okay.
are actually
At the
much
same time,
happier.
but no, that's really. Do you have anything that tells us whether it alters depending on the time of the year?
I don't.
Well, what good are you? I mean,
Because it spikes as soon as the sun goes down on December 21st.
that's it. People just can't. That's it. They're done. They can't handle that.
And to get to your second question, it is believed that Iceland was occupied by Irish Gaelic monks in around 600, 700 Common Era, and then Vikings came in the year 874. And they, as far as I know, there were not people before those monks, but they're also not quite certain. So.
But do the monks count? I mean, what? There were 3
Well,
monks.
I think that
Well,
to the
that's a larger
monks,
question.
they did.
There were 3 monks sitting there doing transcriptions, illuminations,
And-
and they couldn't do it in the dark. So for half the year, they didn't do it.
No,
probably.
Well, I think they sat with a candle, probably, and because that's what monks do, don't they? I mean, come on, they sit with a candle.
And then the enlightened Vikings came in,
Yes,
took care of those 3 monks fast.
I'm sure that was quick. Yeah, and I'm sure the monks put up one heck of a resistance
Really?
in the midst of all of that.
Would you like some mead?
Which, yeah, gone.
But with the exception of the 3 Gaelic monks that were somewhere in Iceland,
Right.
when the Vikings came, it was an uninhabited
Far as
island.
Torin can find out, and he is the chief source of knowledge
and the
And the internet.
and
and a little bit of the internet. Yes,
and a totally valid source of information.
completely valid. Completely
Yeah,
valid.
no, I'm just
This is
all
not
from my own
Wikipedia,
personal
people.
knowledge. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Not
During
using
his
any
time,
tools. Yeah.
sleeping outside in
I found all this
Iceland
out
for
under my
many
blankets.
years. Right. That's very scary. Okay.
Well, when I was in Iceland, of course, like you have to do with whenever you travel to any new culture, you got to try the local foods.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking about food
We've
in
talked
a
food
previous
quite a bit
episode,
last
but
time,
I
yep.
don't think we mentioned the treat that one has when one goes to Iceland.
what is that?
Fermented shark.
Fermented shark.
Actually rancid shark.
Okay.
Rancid.
First
and
of all-
I found a bit of it in the back of my fridge just this morning.
So it's
actually.
super rancid.
super rancid. We kept some, brought it back. Yeah.
Just
right.
to what is the larger version of rancid? Rancider?
Rancider.
Okay.
Rancider.
Isn't that a town in Minnesota? I believe.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you think wearing the Reykjavik T-shirt helped you find it?
It put me in the mood.
In the back, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
so first of all, I'm thinking these are fishermen in Iceland. It's not striking me as the place that sharks would hang out.
Whoa! But these sharks.
These are like
Viking
cold water sharks.
These are
Viking
Viking
Viking sharks. Do they have the horns sticking out of their head?
Oh yes.
They do.
Oh Oh, yes.
See, I knew I could count on you for accurate information.
Unlike other sharks where you
Yeah.
see them in the water because of the fin.
Yeah.
No, these have two big horns.
The two horns
Yeah,
coming out,
two
one on
horns.
either side.
That's right.
Uh-huh. And and they do the Viking clap, I believe.
when there's more than one of them together.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of useless by yourself.
But seriously, this is
Why start now?
A delicacy.
Okay, so it's a delicacy, this rancid shark. Now, why is it rancid?
I think it was
Or maybe
the
somebody
result-
put this over on you, and
it's
they
the
saw an
result-
American
Now,
coming.
that
and they
may
thought,
be.
Yeah.
This is the result of an effort to preserve it. So you
It
kill the
failed
shark.
miserably.
But you eat it anyway.
Eat it, just eat it.
Eat it anyway.
Come on. What could be?
You
What
got
could
this
go
whole
wrong?
shark you killed, and it's got to last the winter or
Right.
a few months. Where
Right.
you're not going to
And
waste
it didn't
any of
do
it.
such a great job, so we tried it.
Right. And
Turned out.
the thing is, you're going out and getting blasted every Friday night in Reykjavik anyway.
Okay.
So that's going to sustain you.
Right.
It at least enables you to eat the shark.
In the midst of this, I was going to say, that's the time to eat the shark. Right.
Man, I have to say, my level of admiration for people who could hold their liquor on a Friday night was
Really. Now, do we think that
the bar was set. In
Okay.
Reykjavik.
Do we think that
Absolutely.
the sun, the things that the sun does up there because of being at a northern latitude of such level that
you mean
that
a
would
latitudinous level of latitude?
absolutely,
All right.
I guess. And with that being that way, do you think that sun or lack thereof would draw more people into a pub on a Friday night to say, let's christen the weekend here?
Well, see, Tom, this is the thing. I mean, I think we have to, whatever we say, we have to be very specific in these cultures. Are we talking about in the winter or the summer?
Well, I don't know. I'm asking you.
You know, are the suicide rates different in the?
That's
right?
what that's what we asked Torn, and he failed miserably to report on that. Okay, so let me move out of Iceland for a bit here, because you mentioned other areas. By the way, England and Ireland are also islands.
Island, yes.
There
yes,
you go.
Right. Well, let me just make one other comment about Iceland, and then
I knew you'd
then
do this.
if we,
if I had not said that, then you wouldn't have any more comments.
well, because we were talking, I was thinking of this as I mentioned in Icelandic, the name
Yes.
of the country, the island, but it's not
Island, but
yeah,
it's
right, okay.
Iceland. Yes.
So it made me think of, I don't think there are many words in English that have been borrowed from Icelandic.
Okay.
The only one that I can think of is geyser.
And they have a
that
lot of
that's an
geysers on Iceland.
Well,
correct?
that's it, because they sit on the it's the result of the European and the North American plates coming
Meeting.
together.
Sure.
Right there. And so there's thermodynamics on this
Okay.
island. There's still volcanoes that are erupting,
A very volcanic island. Yes.
and they have so much heat from under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much, not thermonuclear, but, thermodynamic heat, that everyone in Iceland's home is heated
Geothermically.
geothermically.
I believe that's
Isn't
the correct
that
phrase.
incredible?
I could be wrong, but I believe that's correct.
Isn't that amazing? And because of that, they are so advanced in their concepts of green.
Mm-hmm.
There are plug-in stations for electric cars in Reykjavik, all up and down the streets.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Recycling, they've been doing it for
Because
eons.
where are you going to put stuff?
These are very, very conscious and incredibly aware people. 300,000 people, the whole entire population.
Yeah.
And they all are, in one way or another, related to each other at some point. And this is also an interesting place where people's last names in the same family are
Yes.
different. Because you're named...
Because everybody would be named one name, basically, at this stage.
Well, yeah, that's probably part of the reason for this, but the traditions is that these cultures have maternal lines as well as paternal lines, as all cultures do,
Right.
but the role of these lines are slightly different, so that if, for example, there's a son and a daughter in the same family, they're siblings, right? The son's last name, the family name, might be Peter's son, but the daughter's last name would be Peter's daughter.
I see. Okay. And that now they have versions of that in certainly in other countries as well, where you get those that they'll maybe add an A at the end of the name,
That's
different
right.
things like that.
That's right.
And so, but they do that in Iceland. Huh?
Yeah.
That's, okay.
Yeah. So your name, your family name doesn't go on.
Right, because it alters, given
it
in this
alters
case,
as soon
because
as-
of sex.
Yeah,
Sure.
So your gender.
Gender, yes.
Right.
And, okay. All right. Now, are you done with that? And we don't have
You
to
did
leave
want to move
Iceland.
on to another
well,
island.
I was trying to get to something
We are island
interesting.
hopping here. Aren't we? we're moving from island to island.
We are island hopping, and I'm jumping to, what was the other one you wanted? Was it Malta?
Oh my Malta T-shirt was
Yeah.
right underneath my Reykjavik
See, I'm trying
T-shirt.
to pick this sucker up off of the breadcrumbs you left earlier, and, and it's
Or
not
the-
always
or
easy.
The bits of rancid shark.
That's right. It's probably time to take one last break. Got any questions for us? Well, if you do, there's a couple of ways to get hold of us. First of all, on email, our email address is oopscultureshow@gmail.com. And our handle on Twitter is oopscultureshow. Pretty clever, huh? So talk to us. Okay, so Malta. What strikes you about Malta? Because we've gone over with Iceland. What impacted you the most about Malta?
You know what? Here's the thing, and
Wait, hold on.
there's
Hold on.
there's a
Trumpets. Oh, wait. Trumpets and flourishes, please. Okay, go ahead. This is the thing again.
This is the post all thing
thing
because
from the
because
pre all thing.
The pre all thing was for Iceland. The post all thing is
It's
for
for Malta. Okay.
Even though they didn't have an all thing in Malta.
No, well, they don't need to at that point because we're posting the Icelandic all thing.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea what you were going to say?
No.
Oh, great. It's
No,
sort of like
here's
the
a-
cat with the laser pointer. You know, it's
similar,
just.
because the language developed on this island significantly uninvolved or unbothered by, untouched by too many outside influences for a long, long time.
Malta has been
And
not
Iceland.
influenced.
So you can look at Icelandic,
Uh-huh.
and it hasn't changed very, very much
Okay.
from the original Icelandic that was used in the writing and the creation of the sagas.
You're talking about language now, or are you talking about the overall culture?
It both.
Okay.
Okay. And similarly, in Malta,
Yeah.
the language there was created by the influence of many, many other cultures, but it's never been changed that much where it became any of those other cultures. And the Maltese language, and it is a separate language,
Mm-hmm.
it was created by the influence of Arabic, Italian, Turkish, all of the civilizations that passed through this little island in the southern Mediterranean. But it's the only language that is Semitic and written in a Latin script. So
Really?
like Hebrew, like Arabic, that's not a Latin script. But Maltese is,
Right. Okay.
because of the influence of the Europeans,
Right.
and the European on the development of the Maltese language and the development of the Maltese script.
Okay. All right. Wow. That's really interesting.
So
okay.
on this little island, heavily influenced by all these other cultures, and then there's Iceland on this little island, not influenced by these other cultures.
Right. Right. Now we've got a real difference in climate in Malta from Iceland.
I think so.
Yeah.
Having been to both, I would say yes.
You were in Iceland in December. Do you remember when you were in Malta?
In April.
In April. Okay. Okay. Was it considerably warmer than it was when you were in Iceland?
Yes.
Okay, so we've answered the question. And
It was lovely. People go there for a Mediterranean experience. You sit out on in a cafe or at the waterfront. It's lovely.
yeah, great.
This is not to say that there aren't cafes in Reykjavik. There are.
Uh-huh.
But you can't sit out in them most of the time.
If you sit out, you may sit out for the rest of time, actually.
It's very true.
some future generation can dig
In
you
the
out
summer,
and
in the
talk
high
about
summer, you can enjoy yourself outside, of course.
Right. But Malta's going to have extended seasons where you're out there
Yes,
because it's much warmer weather.
That's right.
And it's influenced a great deal by the warmer sea that it's located in also.
That's right.
It's not out in an ocean.
That's right.
So all of those factors come into play.
It's really off the coast of North Africa.
Right. Okay. And and therefore that it's going to be a much climate closer to North Africa.
That's right.
And so you're going to have that warmness, but you're going to have the humidity and dampness from the waters around it.
That's right.
Okay, so we have now all of those factors come into play as to which direction a culture is going to go in.
Yes, and the history also affects the development of the culture and the temperament of the people.
Yep.
These folks are the result of, but also have endured the influence, and historically that means the attacks and the being conquered by so many other peoples so many times, that there is this interesting, at least from the perspective of the U.S. American, who that is who I am, I found very interesting in that there is this initial sense of formality where I don't let myself too open to the stranger, to the one I don't know. But certainly once we get to know each other, then we can become quite warm. And I noticed this. I can't say it was certainly not a coldness or a distance, nothing like that. The Maltese are not like that. Like one might encounter in other cultures when first meeting someone for the first time.
Okay.
But a certain formality is the way that I would put it, a certain resistance to becoming too casual, too fast with someone I don't know.
Okay.
You're the outsider. You're not of our island. You're not of our tribe, speaking in cultural tribal terms.
Right.
And so the acceptance, the immediate acceptance, the open embrace that one might find in ultimately other cultures wasn't there.
Okay.
And that was interesting because for me, the signals I was getting because of the weather and because of the architecture and because of the influence of, in this case, so much of Italian culture.
Yeah.
Because it's just south of Italy, and the Maltese history being so connected to the Vatican.
Right.
So that all of these sensory impressions I was getting, it led me to the incorrect conclusion that I should expect Italian behavior, Italian welcoming, Italian openness, from the perspective of the U.S. American who understands Italian culture from the Southern Italian immigration experience. As opposed to remembering that if there was an Italian influence here, it was Roman. It wasn't Sicilian, although the Sicilians did influence Malta, and it came from northern Italy, not necessarily only southern Italy. So that it was much more formal, and because there were so many other cultural influences that determined the Maltese temperament and personality beyond just the influence of the Italians,
and continued to do so into the 20th century.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because the Second World War certainly had an impact on it.
Oh, tremendous! It became a battlefield,
right?
Yes, and much of Malta was destroyed during World War II.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's all we have time for.
Yes.
And I'm only sort of kidding. We're getting to the end of it here. But so we're going to have to get back to Malta because this sounds like a great place.
Everybody should go to Malta. It's fascinating. It's influenced by Arab culture, Turkish, Italian. It's quite remarkable place.
Wow. And from everything I know about it, a very beautiful place. Now, is the language Maltese?
It is Maltese.
Uh-huh.
And it is a Semitic language and written, however, with Latin letters.
Right. How does that influence the story of the Maltese Falcon?
Oh, that's another podcast.
I think the answer actually is not at all. I believe there is no such thing as the Maltese Falcon.
I truly don't know if there is or not. I
don't think there
that
is.
Was,
I think it was a creation.
A fiction based on the historical experience of the Knights of Malta.
Right.
Now, the Knights of Malta, when the Vatican was a powerful political force in Europe and in the Mediterranean, the Knights of Malta were the armed forces, so to speak, of the Vatican.
Right.
And for the Crusades, they came and they did a lot of the fighting on behalf of Christianity.
Right.
To reclaim the Holy Land. And of course, I'm putting all of this in quotes from the Muslims.
Right.
Sometimes they were Turks and other times they were other Muslims, but from the Muslims. So they were a political and military force, independent, funded by the Vatican.
Right.
And they were, in fact, once Napoleon, jumping ahead many centuries now, once Napoleon took over much of Europe, they were basically kicked out of Malta. And the Knights of Malta then had to reestablish themselves elsewhere, and the Pope eventually gave them their location, which is essentially in an apartment house in a lovely central neighborhood in Rome. And you can find them there today still.
Yeah.
As a sovereign state.
Wow.
The sovereign state of the Knights of Malta is basically an apartment house in Rome. They are not on the island of Malta anymore.
Right.
But
Okay.
that's where they were when they did their business in the Crusades.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it has been a while. So, but they're still there.
You can knock on the door,
Uh-huh.
and if they're open, you can go in and you get your passport stamped.
Excellent.
Not in Malta. In
Rome, in the apartment
That's right.
where they are.
Right.
In a sovereign country.
It's
Is
in
Dan
Rome.
Brown living there with them
I'm
right
sure
now?
Dan is in.
Yeah. If you're out there, Dan, and you're listening, or if anyone knows Dan, have him give us a contact us.
He probably got a visa forever.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah, because we'd love Dan to come in and talk to us about Malta and those other influences there too. Because I'm sure he's not busy writing a book or anything. So, we're going to wrap this puppy up, and we're going to come back. I'm going to try to influence Dean and Torrin with my idea of sex and culture. So we may do that the next episode. So if I were you,
How can I walk away from that?
I don't know.
How can
But,
anybody walk away from that?
they shouldn't. They should be tuning in to the next podcast.
How can there be a listener who wouldn't want to hear about culture and sex?
I don't have an answer for that.
Except the 3 monks in Ireland who were kicked out when the
they had a
Vikings
lot of
came.
problems a long time ago. Yes. We'll see you. I'm Tom Peterson still, along with my good friend Dean Foster, and a man of, as today's podcast exhibited, a man of an unending knowledge of cultures around the world, and especially on little islands that are different.
And similar in some other ways.
In other ways. There's also our producer, Torrin. He's still under the blanket over in the corner, and he seems to be quite happy over there. Maybe we'll let him out for the next podcast. Tune in for that also. Thank you to all of you out there listening. Once again, this is Oops, Your Culture's Showing.
Oops, it is indeed.
Smell ya. Just want to bother you one last time to say we're a brand new podcast here at Oops, Your Culture's Showing, and we could really use your help by subscribing to the podcast. And not to mention that if you hung around this long and you liked what you heard, well, this makes it just easier for you to get the podcast. They'll pop up for you whenever they're released, so you can listen to them on your phone or your computer or however you listen to them. And it's easy to get, too. Just subscribe using iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. It really isn't hard, and we could really use your support. So, from all of us here at Oops, Your Culture's Showing, thanks.